An incredible story, if true, of absolute incompetence. Right, this is Geordie Journos, powered by Four Rivers Financial Planning.
I like that.
You like that? Yeah. Thought we'd get the sponsor in nice and early. It'll be in the corner of the screen, and also bits and bobs in the bio if you need any bespoke financial advice with regards to investments or pensions. Four Rivers Financial Planning. That's not what we've come here to talk about necessarily.
No.
A little bit of a positioning thing. We've kind of put ourselves, we didn't know where to film here at St James's Park for your quick fire midweek Geordie Journos roundup. We've come out, we're both sat in the Gallagher, didn't we, when we were younger?
Yes, my first memories watching Newcastle were in this stand, the Gallagher stand, which is where we are right now at St James's Park.
And we're just this turnstile behind us here was where I used to go for my season ticket. I had a season ticket here for around 10 years. Many happy memories, and fingers crossed for many happy more sitting in the press box.
Yeah, you don't really get to enjoy the Gallagher anymore, don't we? Not?
No, I'll pop in for the odd pint. If you do sit in this area, you might see us sort of running up to go meet me dad for a pint, but that's as close as I get to the Gallagher these days.
But yeah, what we're here to talk about, Liam? What do you want to talk about today?
So I think there's two key points. We can talk a little bit about what you think we learned from the Australia game in Melbourne.
Not much.
Maybe not, but there were some pointers. We both sort of watched the game. We're not over in Australia like some lucky people are. There aren't many from the North East Press Park.
No.
Many? One? Lee Ryder?
I know Lee Ryder's there.
Yeah.
He's looks like he's having a good time.
Yeah, so check out his videos from over there in Australia. But we'll talk a little bit about what we've seen and what we believe, you know, the merits of that game in particular are. But also, I think one of the big talking points of the week is the Dan Ashworth situation. Seen a lot from another one of our YouTube friends, Craig Hope, this week in relation to that. Some really juicy stuff coming out, it seems, from wherever you think that may be coming out. And of course, a lot of stuff coming out with regards his potential replacement too. And
yes.
That potentially falling down in Dougie Freedman, who we all thought would be coming here to St James's Park. You've got a little bit of information on that, so do stay tuned for that. But we'll start, I think, with Australia. Your thoughts, Tom?
I thought the first half was a reasonable contest, played at a tempo higher than I thought, although not a particularly high tempo. I thought the players would just be sort of strolling through the game, and there was a degree of that, but I thought actually it was a decent contest in the first half. Spurs, obviously the better team for the majority of it in terms of dominating possession, the chances. Didn't really test Nick Pope too much, but then Nick Pope still a bit rusty. We were talking about his great distribution at Brentford, not so much on Wednesday. So yeah, his clearance falls straight to James Maddison, who scores, although it was a handball, wouldn't have counted in the Premier League, I don't think. And then Alexander Isak, who basically looked on the beach for 45 minutes, pops up and does what he does best, scores a goal. And what I would want to say on this game is, I think actually the past month or so is highlighted Jacob Murphy's role in the side, where he comes on 5 minutes, 10 minutes in for from half time for Kieran Trippier and gets another assist for him. And I looked, the last 5 games of the Premier League season, 4 goals and an assist for him. You're talking players, we've spoken a lot, players you could potentially sell this summer. Jacob Murphy was probably in that conversation, but for me, I think he's miles ahead of Miguel Almiron in terms of a player on that right wing who you, if it was a choice between Almiron or Murphy to sell, I think I'd want to keep Murphy, just because his versatility, playing right back, which he started the game at, then moved further forward into a right wing position, even moved out on the left, played a great ball through to Amadou Diallo with the outside of his foot, which unfortunately couldn't convert. But yeah, Jacob Murphy for me as a squad player, I don't want to see him starting every week by any means, but as a player who can play, if you're looking at the potential of Conference League football as well, play right back. I've been critical of him at right back, mind, but he can physically play there.
He can play anywhere across the front if he needed
to.
Eddie
Howe's named him as a striker.
He's not a striker,
he's not.
That one.
Right wing as well, and
he's
I think
a versatile player, though, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think just one strength of Jacob Murphy, which I think was probably a criticism I had of him maybe a couple of years ago, was I think he's quite decisive in the final third. He will just whip a ball in. Miguel Almiron probably wants too many touches. Harvey Barnes is a little bit similar in that regard, although his finishing is way beyond those two. But
I like that, the point you made on Murphy. You know what you're going to get.
Yes.
And he gets in certain positions, he's going to try and get round the full-back, or he's going to whip the ball straight across.
Yes.
And there's a lot of merit in that if you're a centre-forward, because you know what's coming. And it doesn't mean it's always going to be the best of quality, but you know the idea. There isn't going to be anything fancy. He's not going to chop back and try with his left foot and then chop back again. He's literally going to square the full-back up and say, I'm either going to go around you or I'm going to whip the ball around you. And it's positive. I thought that was my big takeaway from yesterday, was that when Trippier went off and Murphy came on, it actually transformed Newcastle United. They looked a better team for it. Whether it was just because he had that little bit more zip and energy and speed about him and intensity in some ways. But I was really impressed with Jacob Murphy, as much as you can be impressed in a kick around 10,000 miles away around the world.
Yeah, and then the second half was just a non-event really. All the young lads coming on. We saw Goran Qual for the first time, who probably had a difficult 20 minutes on the pitch because Newcastle just weren't really in the game at that point.
It was a dysfunctional game, wasn't it? So it's hard to judge anybody, I thought, in that second half.
Exactly. I think all the young lads, I think defensively they did a good job keeping Spurs at bay, actually. And then Mark Gillespie comes on the final few minutes and then he's the hero. And in fairness, to be fair to the likes of Goran Qual, Ben Parkinson, Amadou Diallo, Harrison Ashby,
Ben White,
and
Ben White. Joe White.
I'd take him.
Don't know, he's a bit weird.
Yeah, they converted their penalties really well. Mark Gillespie, the hero as well, with a penalty save. So, I mean, bit of a pointless game in a lot of ways from a competitive or even a player point of view. But hey, Newcastle made a bit of money from it. They've come away smiling.
Well, that's a key point, isn't it? Really, the money thing. But before I go on to that, I thought Ben White was good. Joe White.
Joe White was
I actually
good.
thought the second half,
played the full second half.
Yeah, in the second half, I thought he was one of the minor plus points from the game. And it'll be a big season for him. We'll have to see.
Where does his future lie?
I don't know. We'll have to see. You would imagine it. It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, he obviously ticks certain boxes with quotas if you get into Europe
next season as well.
But I think he'll be involved. He'll actually have to be named in the 25-man.
Potentially.
We'll have to look. I'm putting him on the spot. We'll have to do a research. But it may be the case that they drop in.
I think Elliot Anderson turns 22 next year, but I think Joe White also does, so maybe you're right, maybe both of them will have to.
I wonder if both do. They tick certain boxes with regards to quotas, I think, when it comes to Europe.
Yeah. Lewis Holborn, but would have to be named in the European squad because of the different rules. But that's probably another video.
I know, it's probably another video. Just shows you, like, I seen somebody tweet something, I can't remember, I would give credit if I could remember who tweeted it, but somebody said about the various permutations about Europe. Newcastle United are waiting on one game with two other teams playing in it to decide whether they're getting to Europe. When you look at the situation, how much of UEFA made a mess of their own competitions, that there's teams in Portugal and far-flung parts of Europe waiting to see which tournament they're going to be in because of an Italian Cup final. Yeah. It is totally crackers. Surely it should just be on merit, and that's the end of that. Whether that means Newcastle would lose out, I don't know, but I think everyone can accept that. This coefficient rubbish.
I thought you were going to say something else.
I was going to say something that kind of had the same
meaning.
Yeah, same feel to it. But it is crazy. The money, though, I want to make an important point on the money. I see a lot of criticism, and a lot of people from a basic football standpoint talk about why the hell would you go to Australia and do this, and you complain about player welfare. This isn't player welfare. There is no thought process on player welfare when these games come up. This is purely a PSR buster. Newcastle United will earn somewhere in the region of the same type of money that they will by progressing to the later stages of a Conference League if they make it in this year, by playing one game where they sent the players to play 45 minutes. That's essentially what they've done here. The second game, I don't really know the balance.
It sounds like it will be almost
bunch of kids, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be the team that Newcastle played in the second half for the most part. The likes of Bruno, Isak, Joe Linton, Kieran Trippier pretty much won't be involved. In fact, I think Bruno, Joe Linton, and Isak, Emil Kraft, even Miguel Almiron have all gone home.
Gone anyway.
So yeah.
Set your alarms to see Newcastle under 21s against Australia All-Stars. Whatever it is, A-League All-Stars.
A-League All-Stars, yeah.
All fun and games. The season that never ends.
Yeah, it's 53rd game of the season. Yeah. And that's not even including pre-season, so you add a few more onto that. So yeah, been a long one.
The saga that never ends, though. Dan Ashworth.
Yes.
Some revealing stuff from Craig Hope this week. I think it's
Yeah, stunning. You have to give credit to Craig Hook because like that
Incredible.
was just
I texted him straight away as soon as I seen it. I was like,
bizarre.
that is just
chef's kiss.
it was.
But yeah, it's hard to comment because we have not seen any information to suggest
Yes.
that is what happened. But that
We are
this is
purely
based
commentating on what
on a story,
on the stories that
from
have been
Mail
made.
Online.
We'll have some little bits of info,
Yes.
but we've not seen these documents.
Yes, but the story basically goes is Dan Ashworth has revealed that Manchester United were effectively tapping him up before he even disclosed that information to the club.
And he sent it himself.
Sent it to, but by sending an email, blind copying himself into his Newcastle United email,
Wow.
which he then deleted. All this is alleged in the Mail Online
Because that covers
story.
the tracks. If all of this is true, that is quite an incredible story. An incredible story, if true, of absolute incompetence in many ways. How would you not think that could get found out? And this is the man who is going to transform Manchester United from a dysfunctional football club into the most functional one going, and one who is meant to take a lot of credit for his very brief spell at St James's Park for making things functional.
Which Eddie Howe said, the best compliment I could give Dan Ashworth is he didn't change things, didn't really do anything.
We knew at the time, didn't we?
Transformative.
That was like
Yeah. Well, Dan Ashworth
Eddie
also-
Howe had been behind the scenes before he came in to see you guys. He'd been sharpening them knives, hadn't he? He knew what was coming.
Yeah, but Dan Ashworth even, I think the report also adds that he felt Eddie Howe's comments made his position untenable, really. So that's also interesting to consider. But yeah, Newcastle been looking for a sporting director to replace Dan Ashworth since then. Steve Nixon is the one who's sort of covering the role heading into the summer and will probably remain the case. But Dougie Freedman for quite a while considered the front runner, and my understanding was, having been told Dougie Freedman, it was basically his job to turn down at Newcastle, and now he's since, report from the Guardian, has said he's been offered a new deal at Crystal Palace, which he is going to accept, which effectively rules him out of the sporting director running at Newcastle.
So I think this is all connected.
Yes?
I think there's parts to this that make more sense, and until spelled out, people may not realise. Who were the other club that were really interested?
Manchester United.
Manchester United. And who's Dan Ashworth reportedly already been working for in his gardening leave?
Yeah.
Manchester United. I think there's things been going on here beyond
Chinese whispers.
Yes, I think there's been things, talks, people in other people's ears, etc. I think there's been some. I think it'd be daft not to think things like that. People talk. I mean, really, let's go back to the Ashworth thing before we talk about Freedman and where Newcastle go and what that means to them. We'll go back to the Ashworth thing. It's everybody in with any common sense thought he probably will be already doing stuff because he knows he's going there. It's kind of not. It's not right by the rules, but I think everyone probably thought he probably is, isn't he?
Right. I might have to cut this. But Dan Ashworth, having spoke to him personally, he was in the building at Newcastle for the Cambridge United game while still at Brighton, effectively. So whether he did any work, we don't know. But we'll have to cut this, you reckon? It's just saying he's there.
Did you see him there?
I didn't see him there. This is from the horse's mouth. This is Dan Ashworth.
He said he was there. Nah, we don't cut that.
Okay. It was off the record.
Nah, keep it in. That's a bit there for the Geordie Journos.
Yeah, so
we know these things go on.
What actual work he was doing between that January and when he was eventually appointed in June, we don't actually know. But like you say,
he's not very good at this sort of thing, is he? He's not very good at this clandestine stuff. He said that to you guys.
Well, he said he was in the building, but that's just like, well, was he there for an interview? Was he there to...
Hey, look, he may have just been watching the game.
Yeah, well, he said his first game was Cambridge United away. He was like, what am I walking into here?
Cambridge United away?
At home.
Home, yeah.
Where they got beat.
Yeah, the cup game.
And he was still Brighton sporting director at the time.
Yeah,
but it was heavily reported at that point that he was going to come to Newcastle, and it was just about trying to agree that compensation fee.
Some of the stuff, that whole story this week that broke has brought Brighton into it because of potential, this is all alleged at the moment, information shared potentially between Ashworth and Barada, isn't it? The guy that they got from Manchester City, who also was on gardening leave. This is like 4 clubs drawn into some kind of absolute mess. And having been in these situations before in the past where, you know, I used to be on the coalface with you guys covering Newcastle United all the time, and information does get leaked, fed from certain sources and certain things. As soon as I seen Craig Hope's stuff, I thought, I think this is
building up to something.
This is building up to something.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. This is building up to something, and it sounds very much like it could well be this employment arbitration.
It wouldn't surprise me if we see Craig Hope have another exclusive in relation to this sort of thing,
and others.
Yes,
because briefing will be going on.
Yes,
from all parties. Anyway, Friedman, I think it's a really bad look.
To not.
And I said this about, look, and it's all turned out all right, but I said that about Emery.
It's the same. It's similar.
It's the same. I feel like Friedman's probably played them a bit to an extent, and he's got his money. He's reasonably happy. He played for Palace. You know, he's got connection there.
Yeah.
I feel like they've been played a little bit.
Right.
And it feels like that happened a little bit with Emery as well. They got to the point where it was like, right, this deal will get done, and then didn't, and he knocked them back, and it feels very much like Friedman's done something similar.
I'd say both sort of have come on the back of quite high profile reports from the press as well.
Yeah.
So which Emery it was nailed on.
Yeah, it
was the understanding effectively, and then Emery sort of backed off on the basis that how's this got out type thing. So like you say, not a great look, but hey,
it isn't.
Newcastle have managed without a sporting director.
Yeah.
Their best transfer window, in my opinion, was without a sporting director. Was Eddie Howe, Steve Nixon, getting Trippier in, getting Bruno in, Dan Burn, who've all had a really good impact since they've arrived.
And they're all really valuable parts of the squad and have been throughout that period. So it can be done. And a lot of the groundwork of the summer that came after, which was again probably that was probably more transformative in many ways than that first one with Isak, Botman and Pope. That took Newcastle to different levels. A lot of that groundwork was done well
already
before.
Done, yeah. Botman was a target already.
Long before, yeah.
Nick Pope similar.
So look, I think they can do it. It obviously makes for a busy summer for other people, but you can imagine they'll want to act reasonably quickly and go down that list as you do when somebody knocks back a job, if that has even happened, and find somebody that sounds as though the best place will be domestically based. They want somebody with knowledge of the league. Yeah, is what we understand. So it'll be interesting to see where they step from there.
I agree. But looking ahead to the summer, it looks like there's some movement already as well. Do you want to get into that, or just transfers? Newcastle, we're going to have to sell a few players this summer. We've touched on that and who those may be. But in terms of bringing players in, it seems Newcastle are very close to agreeing a deal, a couple of free agent deals, tossing Adebayo and Lloyd Kelly as well. Tosin is the one which always felt the more bit further forward, the framework being put in place. Lloyd Kelly, obviously with the history he has with Howe, is an obvious link, but actually looks like something he wants to happen as well. On
the merit of both players, I think if you get both those players through on free transfers, it represents a bringing up of the bottom level, like almost.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it absolutely transforms the first team, but I think it brings up that bottom level. Both players could easily start for Newcastle United. I think we've seen both players. On the merits of both players, I've said on this video before, and I'll say it again. Kelly worries me, and he worries me in terms of availability. And that's a big problem. Newcastle need players who are going to be available. Look, Lewis Hall's done a fantastic job. Dan Burn can play inside. That's fine. We're all right, really, on that side, with Sven Botman still to come back. Yeah. You'd imagine Matt Targett's surplus to requirements this summer, although he's got a long-term injury, which we don't know how close. It doesn't seem like he's very close.
He was meant to return by the end of the season, and then Achilles tendonitis. Nothing. So
not good. Joe Willock problems, isn't it?
After a hamstring injury, it's the same.
Where was I going? Kelly, but as a player, ability-wise, I've got no issues with him at all.
Really impressive.
Yeah, it was brilliant here when Bournemouth came up here. Tosin, in my opinion, I've 95% of what I've seen of him I've really liked. I think he's got good size, good athleticism, can he's not there isn't another version of Fabian Schär, there just isn't, but he's got similar passing, not as good, but similar passing range.
He's an upgrade on Jamal Lascelles, really, isn't he?
Yes,
if you're looking in the squad.
Yes. So it's a Jamal Lascelles upgrade, very much so. The only thing I would say about him is he's not whiter than white in terms of errors. He does make mistakes. I think even we saw down there, I can't remember which one it was the 2 wins in the away games recently. I was watching him with a keen eye, knowing that Newcastle had this long-term interest, and there was a couple of moments where I went, "Oh, if he's wearing black and white, I'm not happy with that." Just little moments in games where you're like, not great. Yeah. But one thing that Eddie Howe, you can criticise anything about what Eddie Howe's done in his time.
His track record.
The track record of making players better versions of themselves is almost, I've never seen a manager do it to that level, not just with 1 player, 2 players, it's 10 and 12 players all performing to the highest of their abilities. So if we're seeing a 95% player there with Tosin, which I think we are, if there's anybody I think going to take him to that 100% or close to, it's Eddie Howe.
Yeah, I agree. I think those 2 would represent strong bolstering of the squad. Won't be the answers. I think Newcastle still need to spend some.
You want some quality added after that.
Serious money. One thing we were saying in the way here, Newcastle signings the past 2 windows, and then also, okay, they didn't make a signing in January, but also the type of players they're linked with heading into the summer at the moment, the likes of Tosin, Lloyd Kelly, players like that. We've seen Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Jared Bowen linked today in the Telegraph, which is another discussion for another time, I'm sure. But these calibre of players, other than, I'd say, Sandro Tonali, who's been banned for 10 months and is still banned, every signing they've made has been a signing that probably could have made under the previous regime if finances weren't an issue. The sort of signings you make if you're a mid-table side looking to break into the top half, not if you're a Champions League side or a European side, top 7 side, looking to take to the next level. That's the one thing I'd say. I think Lewis Hall, who's going to sign, Tino Livramento, very much signings for the future and could be top level in the future. But when you look, Harvey Barnes, what we've seen this season, got a lot of quality, a lot to like about him. Limitations to his game as well, and was relegated the season before.
I just think he's got a lot to prove.
Yeah, but
I just don't think we've seen the best of what he could be. I want to see him have a run.
What I think you've argued, you'd probably go Harvey Barnes, Tosin to a lesser degree because he's had interest from Manchester United and Spurs, the likes. And Lloyd Kelly's also had a bit of interest from high up. But these are players that clubs, top 4 clubs, probably don't really look at.
I don't think they do. I don't think anybody else in the Champions League last year signs Harvey Barnes. Like, I'm talking like ones in the top leagues.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody looks at Harvey Barnes and signs him. And that's not a criticism of Harvey Barnes, it's more a criticism of the policy. Look, it worked. That end of season with Lewis Hall coming to the fore really ended any. There's definitely because when he was keep getting thrown in, it was so obvious he was so far from ready. But then Howe held him back to the point where when he's had to put him in at the end, he's so ready.
It was to the point of frustration of the fan base and journalists too. I mean, me and Jordan were getting messages. Jordan's not here today, by the way, if you haven't noticed. The Tyne Bridge, his enemy today. But yeah, we're getting it. Where's Lewis Hall? Where's Lewis Hall? The information we were getting throughout and from Eddie Howe directly was he's still got work to do. He's still got a lot of work to do.
Defensively needed a lot of work. I think he needed that time on the training ground. He'd come from a basket case club at Chelsea where he was thrown into a team where the fans would literally warrant anybody running hard and trying hard, which we've seen. Lewis Hall's got that. He's got a great engine in him. Yeah. I think the nuances of being a proper Premier League defender, he wasn't being coached. It wasn't getting taught. And I think he came here and looked so rough around the edges that he had to be taken back out. And it's great that he was. You know, Newcastle needed him at times this season. It's a shame. And we've been critics of that, saying, was it the window to go and sign those type of players? Well, look, we always had a feeling that history would then prove that wrong. But it was for the there and now. It didn't work. It was the long-term thinking. And great, we've managed to get through that period. It wasn't the season everybody hoped for. But it was a season where there are moments of progress, and there's signs, and there's enough going into next season, into a summer window where you think, yes, this is a point on which back to build again.
Yeah, I think if Manchester City win their FA Cup, which sounds ridiculous, this weekend, Newcastle get Conference League, that's the probably minimum expectations of what could be considered as a successful season. And if they've done that on the back of the injuries, the probably frustrating last summer transfer window where Harvey Barnes was out for the majority of the season, Tino Livramento was probably the success story of it, and then Lewis Hall towards the end, but didn't really play that much football. So the fact Newcastle have got through it, I say unscathed, had all the injuries, but with a 7th place finish and the potential of Conference League football, like I say, is probably the minimum successful season they could have hoped for.
Right, I think we've done a fair bit there.
Let's do a 10-minute video, Dom.
Well, I know, quick 10 minutes, so we've done 25. We're maybe going to try that a little bit this summer, just with some shorter ones, some longer ones.
Yeah, it's hard to commit to 40 minutes 3 times a week. But
yes, so
when we've got actual jobs as well. This is our lunch break, isn't it?
It is lunchtime. Lunchtime for the Geordie Journos. If you can hear the roads, you can probably hear the stack at St James's Park getting built behind me, with all kinds of action going on over.
The stack's looking all right.
It is. It looks quite good. And the club shops looking great there. We'll maybe get a little film of that and get that up.
Yeah, why not?
Quite good. Let you guys out there who we know people watch this programme from all 4 corners of the world. If you just look at the analytics, we're seeing people in Australia, we're seeing people in America, we're seeing people all over Europe, Ireland, wherever it may be. And massive thank you for you guys support out there, as we said in the last video. Jordan's not here to give his thanks, but he's always saying thanks to the viewers from all 4 corners. Yeah. So we'll say it for him. Right, again, thanks a lot to 4 Rivers for sponsoring us, and we'll see you again, probably to talk
at some point over the weekend, because Newcastle play tomorrow, and then there's obviously the FA Cup final to consider, which Newcastle aren't involved in.
The biggest game of the season.
Is Newcastle the biggest game of the season?
And they're not even going to kick the ball.
Chelsea have some relevance in that as well.
Yeah, two teams not playing are watching keenly.
Yeah.
Well done, UEFA. You've done a great job. Right, on that note, thanks for watching, thanks for interacting as well. Like, comment, share and subscribe for all your Geordie Journos content.